Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the May 29th, 2013 Pittsburgh Board of Public Education Legislative Meeting. Before we begin this evening, I would like to remind everyone to turn off all cell phones or pagers and put them on vibrate. Would everyone please rise so we can salute the flag? Thank you. As is our tradition and procedure before legislative meeting, we like to recognize students and employees of Pittsburgh Public School District. I'd like to ask board members to please come forward, and I will turn this portion of the meeting over to Ms. Heather Hobson.
Thank you. This evening, as you have noticed, we have a full house of talented and hardworking students and staff from across the district. First, we will recognize a Pittsburgh Colfax student who used her pencil and her imagination to write an award-winning tale. She wrote her way to a first-place win in the PBS Go Kids Writers Contest and beat out hundreds of children across Pennsylvania and West Virginia. In all, 1,600 students in kindergarten through the third grade entered the competition, and 23 received a title or an honorable mention. When you read her story about a baby woodpecker and a red-tailed hawk, you'll be quite surprised to learn that she is only in the second grade. Along with her mother, she did beautiful artwork as well. Let's welcome Haruka Doi, who will represent our district and out of state, in our state actually, in the national PBS competition this summer. Haruka Doi is also here with her principal from Pittsburgh Colfax, Mr. Adam Sikorsky. Congratulations to Haruka as she heads to nationals. Now moving to the subject of science. Recently, students throughout the district participated in the 74th Pittsburgh Regional Science and Engineering Fair. This event provides a venue for students to demonstrate and communicate their science research or engineering projects to their peers and professionals in the field of science, technology, engineering, and math. This year, more than 1,000 students from more than 100 schools competed at the science fair. More than $1 million in cash awards and scholarships were awarded. PRSEF is a major initiative through the Carnegie Science Center STEM programs, which are experiences that promote interest in and awareness of our region's scientific and technological advancements and career opportunities. Pittsburgh Public Schools had 4 students place at the fair. 3 7th graders at Pittsburgh Science and Technology Academy, they brought back awards. So the first student we want to recognize is 7th grader Ashwin Srinivasan. He garnered a first place award. So Ashwin, if you come in and receive your award, he received the Broadcom Masters Award. Ashwin received the Broadcom Masters Award for Intermediate Chemistry for his entry on the effect of oxygen and vitamin C. The second award goes to 7th grader Sophia Yurkovetsky. She entered in the category of consumer science with a project on radiation and cell phones. She received an honorable mention. Their proud principal, Dr. Shearer, is here to accept the award on behalf of Joshua Zito. He received the U.S. Navy and U.S. Marine Corps Award for his project entitled Best Rocket Single or Two Stage. Their teacher, Brian Rose at Pittsburgh SciTech, is definitely proud of his students this evening. Pittsburgh Perry High School student Danielle Horn landed a full scholarship, $20,000, to attend Carlow University. She's accompanied by her principal, Ms. Nina Sacco, here to support her stellar student. Now, Danielle Horn, I had to look this up on the internet because I wasn't quite sure what C. elegans were, but she did a project on whether or not C. elegans would go toward or away from an ammonia smell. Congratulations, Danielle. This evening, we have a special addition to the Distinguished Achievement Award ceremony. So this next group will receive not only the DA Award, but they'll also receive something from the local task force on the right to education. The local task force will present its champion awards to recognize outstanding teachers, paraprofessionals, personal care assistants, principals, therapists, administrators, and fellow students who through their work, support, or friendship ensure that all children with exceptionalities are provided an equal opportunity and access to a quality education. So at this point, I will now turn the ceremony over to local task force chairman, Stephanie Tensha.
Thank you. We are honored and proud to be able to share this moment of celebration with the Pittsburgh Public School Board. Thank you for having us. A little bit of the history. The local task force on the right to education system was established in 1972, which makes us 41 years old. As a part of the consent decree between the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and the Pennsylvania ARC. The PARC consent decree guaranteed a free public education for all school-age persons with mental retardation, and then it expanded and included all students with disabilities in 1977. The Pittsburgh Local Task Force is supported by the Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit and is a parent-majority organization that works collaboratively with the administration from the Pittsburgh Public Schools, with community agencies to improve, strengthen, and expand education services for students with exceptionalities in the Pittsburgh Public Schools. Our membership is always open, and we meet every fourth Tuesday of the month, except for between September and May, so please consider joining us at one of our meetings. So on to the awards. Our local task force champion award recognizes outstanding teachers, paraprofessionals, personal care assistants, principals, therapists, administrators, and fellow students who, through their work, support their friendship, ensure that children with exceptionalities are provided equal opportunity and access to quality education. The following winners and honorable mentions were nominated by parents, fellow staff, and administrators. Please join us in celebrating the special people in Pittsburgh Public Schools who work day in and day out to make a difference in the lives of children with disabilities. So what we would like to do is, for the winners, I will announce your name, and if you'll please come up and receive your award. And then for the honorable mentions, what I would like to do once I announce your name, if you could just please stand up and remain standing so the folks can see who you are, that would be great. We are having a reception downstairs, so you will receive your awards from us downstairs. So the first award is the J.K. Couples Award for outstanding service by a member of the Pittsburgh Public School Administration. It was named to honor Dr. K. Couples, a leader in the Pittsburgh Public Schools whose work forged the way to set the standard for inclusive practices across the district. The winner is Cheryl Kennedy, Programs for Students with Exceptionalities Program Officer. Ms. Kennedy's work is exemplary. She listens to families. Her caring, considerate, and respectful tone ensures that IEP teams consider family input. Her tenure with the district has impacted so many families, so we're really happy that she is with us. Now, the honorable mentions in this category is Ms. Susan Asti. So if Susan will stand. She is the director of the Low Incident Disability Program. And the other honorable mention was Dr. Regina Hawley. So she's already standing. And she is one of our board members. The second award is called the Marilyn McKenney Award for outstanding service by a member of the Pittsburgh Public School faculty and staff. Named to honor Ms. McKinney, a leader whose work provided the foundation for realizing inclusive practices throughout the district. The winner of this, we actually have two winners. The first one is Kim Dunbar. She is the SOS teacher from Pittsburgh Malians. Kim's work ethic is outstanding. She does an excellent job for connecting the IEP team behind the student. She has very high expectations for the students. She does an amazing job for preparing her students for the real world, and most importantly, believes in them. The second winner is Karen Muxfeld. She is a teacher at Obama. Ms. Muxfeld thinks creatively about how to expose her students to exciting and unexpected activities. This nominator said that her son trusts her and pushes him. Now, the honorable mentions in this category, like I said, if you could please just stand up, is Louise Alfer. She's a teacher from Conroy. Barbara Bellows is a PCA from Dilworth. Sarah Bogus, a teacher from Classical Academy. Latia Butler, she is a PCA from Starrett. Angie Galuz, she's a teacher at Conroy. Kim Grundle, she's a teacher at Brookline Academy. Meta Harrison, she's an assistant teacher at Conroy. Mr. Joseph Koval, he is a teacher at Starrett. It's kind of nice to have a guy. Okay. Miss Barbara McGee, she is a PCA at Brashear. And another gentleman, James Ogg, he's a teacher at Starrett. And the last one in this category is Bernie Stansky, an early intervention teacher at Crescent. Now, we have a school award. So for the building that welcomes all, exemplify access, and has an inclusive culture. The winner in this category is the Classical Academy. It's 6 through 8. And we're having Miss Valerie Merlot, the principal, come up and accept the award. The nominator said that the staff go above and beyond to include all students and make sure they are successful in all environments. From the top down, there is a tone of respect and inclusion that permeates the entire school. The school promotes disability awareness, holds an autism poster contest, and sponsors activities to foster peer interactions. The honorable mentions in this category is Colfax, K-8, Dilworth, pre-K-5, and Starrett Classical Academy, 6 through 8. We have one other award that somebody here doesn't know that they're getting. It's for Family Support Award. It's for outstanding work with families, and Tina is one of our local task force co-chairs, and she has been a local task force member for a very long time. And we wanted to give you an award. Tina has worked tirelessly to ensure that parents of students with disabilities receive the support that they need from PPS and from the local task force. Whether addressing systemic concerns such as improving communications, ensuring that the ADA codes are met, or providing individual support to families, Tina has blazed the trail. She has helped countless families and is a hero and inspiration to those of us who have had the honor of working with her. So we are happy to have this opportunity to recognize and honor the unsung heroes in our children's lives. We would like to take this opportunity to thank the generous LTF members, the PPS parents, the Pittsburgh Public School staff, thank you for all your help, and administration and help to make this celebration possible. Hope you can join us downstairs for the reception. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tensha. And what a wonderful way to celebrate our students and staff members in schools. And we'll now turn this back to the board members. Thank you.
Ms. Kramer, may we please have a roll call?
Mr. Bruntley.
Here.
Mrs. Kalezi.
Here.
Mrs. Fink. Here. Mrs. Hazuda.
Here.
Dr. Holly.
Here.
Mr. Eisler. Mr. McCray.
Here.
Mr. Sumter.
Present.
Ms. Shealy. Here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kramer. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Sumter to please share our core beliefs and commitments.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. The Pittsburgh Board of Education, in order to improve the governance of the board, focused on 5 main areas to concentrate and focus to develop goals, beliefs, and commitments. Goals are what you want, beliefs are that you think you can do it, and commitments are the course of action that you want to take to ensure that it comes about. The Pittsburgh Board of Education is committed to educating all children to their highest level of academic achievement. We want to provide a safe and orderly environment for all students and employees. We want to provide efficient and effective support for all students, families, teachers, and administrators. We want to distribute resources in an efficient and equitable manner to address the needs of all students to the maximum extent feasible. And last but not least, we want to improve public confidence and encourage strong parent-community engagement in the district. Thank you, Ms. Schilling.
You're welcome, Mr. Sumter. Thank you. Will everyone please turn to the minutes from last month? Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions? Seeing none, may we have a motion? McCray and Fink. All in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. The minutes stand approved. At this time, I'd like to read the executive statement. In addition to executive sessions announced at the legislative meeting of April 24, 2013, the board met in executive sessions on May 22, 2013, and immediately before this legislative meeting to discuss various personnel matters that may include, but are not limited to, administrative vacancies and positions opened and closed. Finally, at the executive session immediately before this legislative meeting, the board discussed students' discipline cases that involved violations of various portions of the Code of Student Conduct. The board does not vote at executive sessions. Please turn to the committee, on education, and I'd like to give you the student expulsion, suspension, and transfer numbers for this month on page 14 of 14. "62 students suspended 4 to 10 days. 0 students suspended 4 to 10 days and transferred to another Pittsburgh public school. 4 students expelled out of school for 11 days or more. 0 students expelled out of school for 11 days or more and transferred to another Pittsburgh public school." Item number 29, amendment to the University of Pittsburgh and Keys AmeriCorps contract school performance, was pulled at agenda review for further discussion. We will begin discussion on item number 29. Oh, I'm sorry. Can we hold that thought for just a moment? Dr. Lippert has a correction.
Yes, good evening. If I could have you turn to page 2 and 3 out of 14 in the education section. We have a correction on number 4. I'm actually going to ask you to look at page 3. Item number 4 is split between the bottom of page 2 and the top of page 3. If you look at the second to last sentence, it starts with "if funded." The base funding would be 2.368185, which is, you follow that sentence? It says to serve additional children, and in parentheticals, it says 12 PPS and 20 partner. Those numbers are reversed. It should say 20 PPS, I don't know why there's this feedback here, and 12 partner. 20 PPS and 12 partner. And that's the correction. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lippert. Now, we will return to item number 29. Does anyone have any questions, comments on item 29, which is the University of Pittsburgh and Keys AmeriCorps contract under school performance? It was? What? I'm sorry. Yes, for discussion. Yeah, no. Sorry. Seeing none. Item number 31, Bevan Education Solutions, teacher effectiveness, was pulled for further discussion at agenda review. Are there any questions, comments on item number 31? Dr. Hawley?
Yes, I asked to have this pulled. The district did send us information on the number of funds that this group has received since its inception, which turned out to be $817,800, with a combination of school-based funds and grant funds. There is an area here that I'd like to ask the superintendent about. October 1st, 2007 to August 31st, 2008, did we use, I was under the impression that this group was also a part of ETS, and did you pay them as well as paying this amount?
Dr. Hawley, I'm sorry I don't know the answer to that question. Perhaps Dr. Lippert does?
Dr. Hawley, I'd have to go back. What happened is that prior to Dr. Lane being here, we did start a contract with ETS to support us in the principal evaluation work. And what happened is that Dr. Bevan, who was formerly employed by ETS, ended up going into independent practice. ETS then discontinued their support of their principal evaluation training portion. So we continued, we moved from ETS to then Bevan Consulting. And that's why you see this item here, which is the first item, 2007, 2008.
Okay, the question that I'm asking then, she was still a part of that program, that company, ETS, Educational Testing Service. So my question to you is, was this money on top of the money that we paid to ETS? And how much money did we actually pay to ETS?
We'd have to go back and actually look prior to October 1st, 2007. I don't have that here, but we can get that for you. It
Okay.
definitely wasn't on top of, because if she was actually employed by ETS, the money would actually go to ETS, not her. So we just have to go back and look at.
Well, I know
contract.
that the money wouldn't go to her, it would go to ETS, but she did get a check from them because she was working for them. So this this total amount of $817,800 is really not all that was paid to her. That's not all that she actually got. She got more than that.
Well, Dr. Hawley, if she was an employee of ETS, she would have been paid by ETS, but we wouldn't necessarily know what her salary was. We may or may not have that information. I think we can look. But I think the point is that she was paid by ETS as an employee of them, and then separately and not at the same time. So I think your question is, were we paying her and ETS was paying her at the same time? And no, it was one or the other, not both.
Okay, now I think I specifically remember when she started, and this was at the same time that Mr. Roosevelt had PAA and principals actually voting on whether or not we would go to work on this particular grant. So it was at the same time, and that was the first time we actually met her. So yes, I would like to know what was paid from what we paid to ETS and when that was paid. Thank you. Now, the second part of this is that in February 1st, 2012, we actually used some of our SIG money to pay $108,000 for her, for the $208,000 that she was actually paid for working not even for a full year, February 1st through December 31st. Can you tell me what was your thinking in using SIG monies? Did we have to match that money with the Belinda Gates Fund money that we received?
No, this part of the SIG grant funds are also deployed or allocated to schools. We also had a central allocation of funds where the central allocation was used to support all schools. So there was no requirement of matching the Gates grant dollars to the ERA funds or the SIG funds. It was used out of the central SIG allocation that was supposed to support teacher effectiveness and support all schools in general.
Thank you. I'm asking these questions because I really think that we have saturated this particular company and that we really should be learning from this company how to do the programming that we need to do in the future in terms of evaluating teachers and other personnel. So I need to let you know I will not be supporting number 31 because of that very reason. I think it's time that the district owns their own product in terms of evaluation and supporting teachers, and I really don't think that there is a need to spend this kind of money. We're actually spending $111,000, approximately $111,000 for a contract that's only going to last for 6 months. And, you know, I really have a problem with that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other discussion on item number 31? Mr. Brentley?
Yes, I just want to echo my concerns mentioned by my colleague, Dr. Holly. I have made the comment before that I remember this company coming before us many times over the past, and I think I've actually raised a question at one point, the rate, because early on when Mark Roosevelt was here, I think we actually gave a rate, and it was an unbelievable rate. And so my question has always been, how do we determine if someone is worth $1,000 a day or whatever that rate was put together? How do we, how do we determine that? And so, Doctor, well, you know what? You don't even have to answer that because I think I just answered it myself. That's where the other part of where the folks need to be concerned about, because I believe on the back of the board tab, I think it was checked as negotiated. And negotiated simply means, come on in, let's talk. What do you want to agree on? You got it, that's it, we'll submit it. And I have, I made the comment about feeling like an ATM machine here with certain contractors, and this is one example. Secondly, Dr. Lane, I was just asked that if the staff would be mindful as you move forward. I know there are certain things that we may not have the expertise in, so it's important that we have access to consultants. But when we're engaging these consultants, somebody has got to remind our staff, our administration, about our financial situation. And so what you were able to bargain for, negotiate for 15 years ago should not be considered at this point. We were a little better off financially, I think, 15 years ago. And what we're dealing with now is very, very serious. So I'm only asking that as we move forward and negotiating contracts, that we keep that in mind when negotiating with service providers, and that we be mindful and be able to show us that we were able to save or we were able to get a lower rate. So I will also be joining my colleague on this and many, many other contracts as well. So I will not be supporting this item. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Brentley. Mrs. Khaleesi?
Thank you. I do have a pretty good recollection of this, and if I'm almost, I would say 99% sure that at the time when this individual left, or when the group broke up, it was the company that broke up. When they broke up, what was brought back to the board was that we were discontinuing the original contract that included her, and then we were going to finish the work with a new contract specifically with her. I mean, I could almost remember that to the T. I might be off on dates or exactly how the financial part of it went, but we ended the one and we began the new one, and it was specifically because that person left the group and went on her own to finish the work. So I'm sure of that. Now, if she had formed her own company, if I'm not mistaken, she had a partnership at that point with someone else. And I'm not sure who that was. I don't remember who that partnership was. But I do remember the contract ended because they were no longer doing that work, and then we picked up just her, or her and her partner, because I think she kind of formed her own little company to finish off the work. There was no overlapping. That was a lot of the questions at the time as well. So I have a very clear memory of that. I can't tell you the name of the company, and I can't tell you the date, but I can assure you that we ended one and began another one. And because I asked the questions, I remember that. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mrs. Khaleesi. Dr. Holly?
I understand that, Mrs. Khaleesi. Thank you. You were here as a board member at the time, and your recollection is probably correct. I also remember, because I was an employee and a part of this program, and also the PAA president, who at the time wasn't happy with the principal evaluation, but that's neither here nor there. We went along with it. I want to be very clear that the work that was done with this group was, perfectly fine. I have no problem with that. I just believe that it is time for the district now to be able to do this work on their own. I don't know how long we got to work with. We have to enlist a contractor to teach us, or a consultant to teach us how to evaluate teachers. I just believe that from 2006 to 2013, I think that should be more than enough. After that, you need to be hiring people to actually do this work. Let me take that back. We already did hire people to do this work. We have principals that are not in buildings. We have vice principals that are not in buildings. They're doing this work right now. So my assumption is that these people could actually continue this work that the district wants, and we don't need to have the consultant to continue.
Seeing no more discussion on that item. Item number 32, charity partner license agreement with Hard Rock Cafe International USA, Pittsburgh Kappa 6012 school performance, was pulled at agenda review for further discussion. I actually think the person who pulled it is not here. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Anyone have any comments or questions on this item?
Go ahead, start.
Go ahead, Mrs. Khaleesi.
I left a little early before Mr. Eisler had questions and requested it. I'd like to know if his questions were answered. He had some pretty valid questions, and I'd like to know if they were answered.
As I recall, Mrs. Khaleesi, one of the questions was about the wording in the agreement, because it referenced the district as a foundation. And so we got in a long conversation about the fact that we weren't a 501(c), even though we were a tax-exempt body. So my understanding from Mr. Weiss was that language was changed, because the actual, the item the board's being asked to approve was not really in question. It was the actual language in the agreement that was in question.
Mr. McCray?
I actually asked for it to be pulled because we had just gotten it that night. I thought we needed to come back and talk again. But I was looking in the section under the use of trademark, number 10. In section B, it talks about a co-branded authorized product. Is that what they're producing for us? Do you know that?
It's my understanding that the item will have both the Hard Rock Cafe logo as well as the Kappa logo on it, and that was my understanding, yes.
And part of our concern is the commercialization and the use of our logos and stuff for commercialization. Now, if you look further down in section D, it says that we have 10 days to approve whether we want to use that particular item the way they've designed it. Who does the approval on that?
At this point, it's my understanding that the principal, Melissa Perlman, was working with Hard Rock on making sure they had the accurate logo for for use in this project.
I'm not worried about the actor. I'm worried about if they make something that we just totally don't like, who says, no, we're not going to do this?
It could be anyone who the board so pleases. It could be the superintendent. It could be the board could have a look at the item. The agreement has been updated to address all of the concerns that were raised last week, and the Hard Rock Cafe is fine with those changes. And as soon as we get approval, it would be executed. But that is something that you could dictate. I'd be happy to arrange that, make sure it happens.
Should we have that in what we approve tonight, or can we amend it somehow? Because it's a great program, don't get me wrong. It's just that they have to move with it quickly because they've started their program already. Should we amend this tonight to include that it has to meet the superintendent's approval or the board president or somebody, whoever the board pleases? I'm asking.
I'd be happy to add that requirement. I believe that the language in the agreement addresses the fact that we have the ability to approve or disapprove. So then just giving the direction to the superintendent as to who that person would be sufficient. I don't think the agreement itself needs to be amended right here. It does include the requirement that it be approved or that we have the option to disapprove it. So
I'm done. That's all. Thank you.
Hold on, please. Dr. Lane. Dr. Lane.
Yeah, thank you. I'd be more than happy to review it. I'm sure that Ms. Perlman and I can take a look at it and approve it before it actually goes forward. So that would be fine. And I'd also like to, just for the sake of those that are listening here, CAPA won a contest in order to get this opportunity. And so what it really will be is a fundraiser for the school. And that's the purpose of it. So.
Thank you, Dr. Lane. Mrs. Fink?
There is a picture in there of the Kappa insignia, the way they have it designed to look like an artist's easel and various things. And I'm assuming that that is the same logo that's going to go onto this pin that the Hard Rock will be selling. Those pins are collector's items. There's a whole group of people that go from, that whenever they travel to a city where there's a Hard Rock Cafe, they buy pins that are indigenous to that city. And they collect these things, and they have banners, and I know this because I had a relative that used to work at the Hard Rock, and I've already gone out of town and bought pins. Skippy took me to a place once to get one. But anyhow, I think it's a wonderful opportunity for the school to make a little extra money and to get the Kappa insignia out there across the country. And people say, what's Kappa? And then they'll check into us online and they'll be so impressed. So I just think it's great.
Thank you, Mrs. Fink. Did I see another, Mr. Brentley?
Yes. You know, I'd like to first, Dr. Lane, you said that you're going to meet with Ms. Perlman to make sure everything is in line. And I want to first say as loud as I can that I am the #1 supporter of Kappa. But we have a policy, an advertising policy that, and we've had some pretty bloody battles at this table over the years about major companies coming in and wanting to tag certain things with our logo and their logo. And we fought. There was a national move where companies came in, actually nationally came in and lobbied us really, really heavy. I remember the soft drink company that said, we will give you a scoreboard if you allow us to stamp our logo in the quarter of it. And it was a nice piece of change. But we fought to make it very clear that our students and their minds are not necessarily for sale. This seems to come very, very close to some of those arguments that we were trying to fight against. I have no problems with the Hard Rock Cafe. I think I understand what they're doing here, but we begin to, we're kind of on some dangerous land here, because if no one has checked, and I'm going to ask that our solicitor would run every line in this item before us through our policy. And if it is, we have to find a way to come to grips with that, because if not, then we begin to open the doors up. Even for folks who've made donations, I know that I fought at this table to make sure that at the end of their tablet that they didn't stamp their name on it. They didn't backdoor the advertising policy. So I'm only asking Dr. Lane, there is a very, very tight policy, and we fought hard to keep it there. There's been quite a few folks who've tested the waters. This one is coming right through it, if not up close to it. And so I'm asking that we can, let's get a legal opinion. I will support this, but I want to make it very clear that if it is in any violation of our policy, that we immediately, if we have 10 days, that we adjust it. And then secondly, we find out what we have to do to close the doors so that the other soft drink companies and candy companies don't come and now say that we have to do them as well. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Brentley. Ms. Democrat? Seeing no other discussion on this item, are there any other items in the Committee on Education that board members would like to discuss at this time? Mr. Brentley?
Yes, I have a couple of items. The first one would be on page 5, and that's number 11, and this was the contract with the Interim Healthcare, Inc. to deal with the hiring of I believe it's 5 nurses. And I am so thankful to my constituents who watch this meeting, who actually teach me and educate me on what they hear at the meeting. And I do have a list of items which I will get to you, Dr. Lane, and I would ask for a response. But they made it very clear that there was a lot of misinformation shared at that meeting. There are too many items for me to go through, but I will say again, and I'll continue to say it, 14 years on the board here, and I remember voting for quite a few contracts for nursing. For me, it makes absolutely no sense to put nurses, or wait, they even call it a different name, medical something, interim healthcare or something. They have a different name because they technically, I guess, can't be called nurses. I am in support of hiring, if we have to hire nurses every 2 years, or hire 2 nurses every year, then we should do that. This is starting to make absolutely no sense to have to give $200,000 and $300,000 every year, every other year, for nurses who are not totally credentialed the way that our school nurses are. And it becomes a real disservice to our students. God forbid if one of these acting nurses or medical aides or assistants have to pick up where our nurses have left off and make a huge mistake. And so I will not be supporting this item. I'm saying this to encourage the staff. Someone's got to justify it and show us the rationale on the kind of money that we're giving out under consulting or contracting basis for this versus hiring 2 PPS nurses that will come fully credentialed and will have the benefit of learning the parent, knowing the parents, knowing the students, knowing their medical history, and just being a part of this community. So I'm asking that we consider that. I will not be supporting that, and I would love to see the kind of money that we spent in the last 6 years for, and I think it was a different company, but for these contracted medical aides or medical assistants. Thank you. I do have another item, but I'll wait.
Does anyone else have any comments or question on that item? Mrs. Azuda?
Yes, I guess before we vote on this item, I'd like some clarification because I thought that this was for substitutes to be used as needed. Say if our nurse calls off at a school, that we have staff to cover that school. I'd like some clarification before we vote on that. I don't know who the appropriate person is.
So these nurses are providing a service to our nurses, We're required to have a medical professional administer medications, and it would be cost inefficient for our nurses who are higher credentialed, like Mr. Brentley said, to be spending most of their day traveling from building to building to building to go and just administer a medication. So there would be one of our nurses, for example, in a building, and another nurse may come and provide medications or provide other services. So it's an additional service. It's not a replacement at all of what our nurses do. So this is just so that we can have the coverage in all of our schools to ensure that every one of our children who need medication receives it by a licensed medical professional.
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. Any other comments or questions on item number 11? Dr. Hawley?
So you're telling me that if I have children that take medication at different times during the day, there has to be a nurse that will come in and give that medication? Because in some instances, the nurse is only there one day a week. So I'm confused.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. We need a medical professional to do it, and that's why these nurses, we would not ask our nurses to be traveling throughout the day to various locations. They would never get their health mandates done or be able to provide the episodic care that they do. So this is a very effective way of making sure that every child who needs their medication gets it in a timely manner.
The nurses that we hire for one-on-one to support children, are they able to give medication to other children if they're in the building?
Not if they're hired for one-on-one, and that's a good point in terms of we do have lots of different nurses providing lots of different services in our buildings, and we do have to look for a way to be able to combine efficiencies, but as it stands right now, if a one-on-one nurse is really designated to provide that service for that student.
Any other comments or questions on item number 11? Mr. Brentley?
Yes, Doctor, can you tell me, are we required by either federal law or state law to have X amount of nurses per 100, per 1,000 students?
Yes, we are, and as a matter of fact, we are well below the limit, so we have a lot of stretch, and we actually hire more nurses than we need to just fulfill that requirement. We believe that we do provide a good service to our children, and we did not reduce our nurses with the commensurate with the decline in our enrollment. So we're well within that limit.
Okay. And Doctor, I guess it's a great topic for another discussion another day, and I'm sure that you are well aware that there are some varying opinions concerning that. I'm just amazed at the knowledge base of my constituents who have shared with me from firsthand knowledge as to what we could be doing, what we should do, what we should be doing, and we're not. And so, but that is another issue. But what you had mentioned before, and I'll just mention this and move on. If you are in need of medication, what would you prefer? That nurse that was credentialed or the one that you mentioned who was contracted, who's just approved to give medication?
Mr. Brentley, they're both credentialed. There's just different levels. If I was going to need a medical procedure or, for example, a physical, I would want a different type. If I just needed my medications, I would be covered under these fully licensed medical providers.
Okay. Once again, I would, for me, it'd be much different if I had the opportunity, and I'm thinking in terms, I have my parent hat on now. If my son is under medication, I want Miss Nurse so-and-so who is there every day, who knows me, who knows my wife, who knows my child, who knows his history, knows his class, versus someone who is under contract, and I think this is a child, and I realize you put an extra step in now, and you now include the picture, which is helpful in the folder, but there were mistakes in the past, and I just think it is something we should not be gambling with. We can afford to justify having a full-time nurse. If 3 or 4 that we need, we can easily do it. That's what I would like to see, but I understand. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Brentley. Is that it on item number 11? Mr. Brentley, you have the floor.
Yes, I have and this is This is just a question to my colleague, who is the educator on this board, Dr. Holly. On page 7, there's an adoption of a school administration's a formal rating system, and I'm just curious if you want to just take a moment as an educator. Did you have any feelings on that, or I think it was number 7 or 17? 17, it might be page 7. There you go, I got it reversed. 17, page 7. And, but you can think about that if it's just something, I just thought about it. I don't know much about it, and so we pretty much rely on the administration, but I was just curious to see from an educator's point of view if you had an opinion. I'll go on to my next point, and if you want to share it, you can. Page 9, number 23. And Dr. Lane, this is concerning the Mount Washington Community Charter School resubmission application. It is just a brief paragraph there or so, but it did not actually say what the recommendations were. Is there a legal proceedings that did it say actually? Okay, not the details.
Yeah, it doesn't say
Okay.
why. It says what, but not why.
Okay, and I just wanted to ask, is there any legalities to that, or is this sufficient?
The resolution as written is sufficient. The reason, there could be more detail in it if that was something that the board was interested in. When this resolution was prepared, the final report had not been issued yet, so all of those details weren't ready to be submitted, although the recommendation was done. It just hadn't been compiled into a final report. So if you wanted more detail in a resolution, you can certainly add it, but the resolution as written is sufficient.
And have we followed all necessary laws, charter school laws, in informing the applicants as well?
Yes, Max Juncker of our office has worked closely with the team and has made sure that the process was completely compliant with the charter school law and all the requirements.
Okay, that's it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions or comments on the committee report on education? Seeing none, Ms. Kramer, may we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Brentley?
I am going to try to get this right. I'll be voting no on page 13, number 31, and then I'll be voting no on page 5, number 11.
Mrs. Clazy?
Vote yes on the report as a whole. I vote no on number 32.
Mrs. Fink?
Yes.
Mrs. Hazuda?
Yes.
Dr. Holly?
Yes on the report as a whole, no on item 11, and no on item number 31.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Sumter?
Yes on the report as a whole, no on item 31.
And Ms. Shealy?
Yes.
Okay. The report as a whole passes.
Thank you, Ms. Kramer. We will now move on to the committee report on business finance. Item number 34 was pulled at agenda review for further discussion. However, that item has been moved to budget matters in your legislative book, 2013-2014 Special Education Budget. We will have the opportunity to discuss this item before we vote on it. Are there any other items in the Business Finance Committee report that anyone would like to discuss? Mrs. Azuda?
This is under personnel. I can do that now? No? Okay, wait.
Mr. Sumter?
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. The resolution for the board, of the Board of Education of the School District of Pittsburgh to not raise the rate of any tax for the support of the school district for 2014 school year by more than Act 1 index. Some clarification on that resolution. Are we going up to the index or not? And if we do, is that a minimal tax increase if we were to?
That decision whether to raise up to the index or raise taxes at all has not been made by the board.
Thank you.
That decision to raise taxes up to the index or whether to raise taxes at all has not been made by the board.
Mr. Joseph, just for clarification, that vote will be presented, or that item, whether to raise taxes, will be presented to the board when?
That would be part of when you would approve the budget in December.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. Any other questions, or Mr. Brentley? Sorry, just on the Committee on Business. Thank you. Go ahead.
I have page 9, number 23. This is the renewal of the Fourth River Development contract. This is a company that receives $120,000 to manage the sale of unused and unnecessary school buildings for the period of 1 year. This is a contract renewal. This is also the company that gave us the recommendations a couple of months ago for the hotly controversial sale of the historic Shinley High School building. This is the company that helped with the framework on the sale price. We sold and accepted this building for pennies, and we did not get information that could have helped us increase what we could have received from that. And so it came from this company. And so it's disturbing to me to now have this company come before us with a renewal as if everything is okay and they've been a great advocate for us. They have not been an advocate for us. And I think that one of the things that we need to do as a board, when we give these kinds of contracts, and for the most part, they were able to take pictures of the buildings, and then they came back and gave us what's inside them and so on, and then suggested this. We need all the revenue that we can possibly raise, and to not be creative in coming forward, this $125,000 should buy a little bit of creativity. And in my opinion, it has not. And so I don't think that we should be renewing it. Secondly, I have not read an evaluation of this company, but nevertheless, they're here before us, getting a renewal. And so I'd like to put a motion on the floor that we just simply table this item and we rebid it and actually solicit from other companies who would include in their proposal to get this work some creativity on what we can do with the buildings, number one, but number two, how can we get the maximum amount of money possible for some of these buildings. So it is a motion that we table item number 23, the Fourth River Development LLC contract renewal operations, or contract renewal that's on page 13.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? No second. Seeing no second, the motion dies.
Well, I will simply say that I will not be supporting it. Secondly, we owe it to the taxpayers to get whatever we possibly can for some of our buildings. When you look at what happened to Shinley and to now to turn back around and reward this company, I think we're not acting in the best interest of the taxpayers. I will not be supporting this item, and I'm hoping that my colleagues will join me on it. I do have another you want me to go on. The next item is number.
Mr. Brentley,
Yes.
can I ask you to hold for 1 second?
Sure.
Go ahead, Mr. Sumter, on that, because he's on that same item.
Question to Mr. Joseph. Who sets the price for the sale of buildings?
The board does.
Meaning the district or the board itself?
When we released the RFP, there was a upset price in the RFP that the board had an opportunity to review before the RFP was released.
Okay, there was perhaps a glitch in the process because I had asked for input on the upset price for Shenley and never got that opportunity, and it went forward and went to sale. The only comment that I have at this point is to make sure that that process works according to what you're saying now, that for the properties to be sold, that the board is made well aware of what the upset price is, and if the board has any comments, concerns, questions, or disagrees with that, that they're given that full opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sumter. Mr. Brentley?
Yes, let me just also add, we don't want to confuse the public here. We can clearly give the indication as if we said this is all that we want and that's it. That is not the case. That is not the case. Okay, secondly, if we have someone under contract and they are hired to look out for our best interests and to get us the maximum amount of money, we've never heard any objection from this company to suggest that, hey, you know, the market value is 7 times that amount. You can clearly start your upset price at, 3 times that amount. We've never heard that. Okay, secondly, if we do nothing else with this contract but add a clause in that would simply make it mandatory that this company, as well as any other company that's in this kind of capacity, that they would have to show us, and please, legal folks, please help me for the legal term, something that they would have to sign that no one in their company has an interest in any of the companies that are in line to purchase our buildings. Please give me the correct legal term for that.
There are conflict statements, and they were signed by each of the principals in Fourth River prior to the original contract. So this is a renewal. We can certainly add language to the renewal contract and even make it more restrictive, but the conflict statements that were issued and signed prior to the first contract being executed were legally sufficient to protect against any of those issues.
Now, is it necessary that we include language to tell them that we like to sell for the maximum amount of money? Should we have to spell that out? I don't know, because they didn't do it so far, so what should we?
I'm certain that Mr. Camarda and Mr. Joseph can communicate the board's concerns over price setting and similar items with the contractor, should it be renewed by the board.
Thank you. I'll move on. I know it's going to pass, and it's a terrible thing to do. Number 33, that's on page 13 of 13, and I just want to say what a great program, the Fresh Fruits and Vegetables program. And it's also interesting that it's here as an item for us to vote on, but you would think that this should be common practice in this district. With the issue of obesity that we have, that we should already be in this mode, already advocating fresh fruits and fresh vegetables. So I will take it any way that we can get it. Congratulations, and hope that it will expand and move further. My final item is on page 12, and that's number 32. This is the renewal of the Propel Charter School that is leasing our building on the north side, the Columbus Middle School. I have said over the years, while approving different charter schools, that there is no question that this process is highly political. This is a perfect example. We have not, to the best of my knowledge, leased any of our buildings in the past to any other charter school. But Propel has a lease, and it's a very, very sweetheart kind of a lease. We will do maintenance for them, we will work closely with them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it disturbs me while I have some concerns about charter schools, but this is a perfect example of how politics can play a role in how we handle and treat charter school applicants. And so I will be voting no for this item. Keep in mind all of the hoopla that we've heard about Propel being the savior of the day. This is an agency or company or school that did not make AYP last year. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Brentley. Mr. Joseph, forgive me, I missed the opportunity, and actually this is for Dr. Lane, on item number 29 with the Act 1 tax resolution to strongly encourage you not to race to the index. Again, I think I said that at agenda review, and I'll repeat that. The City of Pittsburgh income tax is, this is property tax. Well, I'm going to start with income tax, because our income tax is horrific. 3% of those of us who actually earn income, and this goes directly to the city and the school district. Compare that to our neighboring municipalities, and we are at least 6 times probably the average. It could be 12 times, because there are some municipalities that are at 0.25%. And then having just gone through reassessments in Allegheny County, there's a large population of us, well, probably at least half of us, have had our property values increased tremendously so that we are paying more property taxes. The high income tax, high property tax, and then the district raises to the index just makes it unattractive for a lot of people to live in the city. So that's my plug, because I'm not going to be here when you vote. When you make the recommendation and when you vote, that's my plug for not raising to the index, because we just did it last year. Are there any other comments on business and finance? Dr. Holly?
Yes, I neglected to pull number 20. I just want to ask the question, this company, Landtech, it used to be part of Argus. This isn't the company that we had all the problems with before in terms of keeping information on students? They're not connected, are they? I just want to know.
Somebody say it on the mic.
No.
Seeing no other questions or comments on business and finance, Ms. Kramer, maybe please have a roll call.
Mr. Brentley?
Yes, on the report, I'll be voting no on page 9, number 23, and I'll be voting no on page 12, number 32.
Mrs. Khaleesi?
Yes, on the report as a whole, I'll be voting no on number 32.
Mrs. Fink?
Yes, on the report as a whole, no on 32.
Mrs. Hazuda?
Yes.
Dr. Holly?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Sumter?
Yes.
Ms. Shealy?
Yes.
The report as a whole passes.
Thank you, Ms. Kramer. Let's now move on to the report on personnel that is before you, that includes addendums A through G. Before we begin discussion, I'd like to ask Dr. Lane to read a memorial for one of our employees.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. Dear Board of Directors, it is with great sadness that I write to inform you of the death of Louise Braun, health and physical education teacher at Pittsburgh Lincoln. The Lincoln School community would like to pay the following tribute to Louise's memory. We lost our dearest Louise Braun of Shaler Township on Sunday, April 21st, 2013. Louise was the loving wife of Jack Braun and beloved mother of Chad and Eric Braun. She was survived by many family members and friends. Louise enjoyed the outdoors and loved gardening. Louise was a dedicated physical education teacher. She constantly fought for more athletics and physical education in schools, believing a healthy lifestyle will improve one's future. She worked to instill these beliefs in our staff, students, and community. She worked diligently to encourage students to make lifelong healthy choices. Louise brought programs and organizations to Lincoln to promote healthy and active living. In the last months of her time at Lincoln, she was working on the NFL Play 60 grant to earn money for our school. Louise will be remembered for her love and dedication to our school community. We will greatly miss everything about our outstanding teacher, friend, and peer. Respectfully submitted, Linda Lane, Superintendent of Schools.
Thank you, Dr. Lane. Are there any questions on the personnel report at this time? I'm going to just go around the table. Mr. Brentley?
Are we voting with all the addendums all at once, or will they be voted individually?
All, A through G, everything in front of you in the personnel report.
Okay, I just want to ask questions. I think it's addendum B. And Dr. Lane, you have here a candidate for the Assistant Superintendent, School Transformation, Pittsburgh Westinghouse, 6 to 12. Can you tell me or tell the public, is he an Assistant Superintendent or is he the principal?
Mr. Brentley, the title for this position is Assistant to the Superintendent, not
Okay.
Assistant Superintendent, for School Transformation at Pittsburgh and Westinghouse. He will serve as the head of school at Westinghouse High School.
Okay, he will be on the ground in Westinghouse?
Correct.
Okay. Can you talk about the process on how you were able to come up with this young man? Yes.
Well, the process was a pretty normal one. He applied, we interviewed, we checked, certainly background references and that type of thing. That's what the process was.
Okay.
And by the way, we did advertise widely for Westinghouse. I think I should mention that.
Okay. Doctor, for the last 5 or 6 years, I have been advocating, it seems like it was an additional duty advocating for that area because they've been through so many transitions in that community. Can you tell me, have we extended an invitation to all parties to be a part of the selection, or were they involved at all, the community, including the Westinghouse Alumni Association?
Mr. Brentley, I did describe the process. Typically, what we have done, we did have a meeting with some community members, teachers, Westinghouse partners, approximately a month ago, I would say, to gather more information from them about their concerns, the kind of things they'd like to see happen. However, if you're asking me, did they interview the individual for the position? No, that did not take place.
Okay. Doctor, I attended that meeting as well, and I made it very clear that before I would support any candidate, number one, we would have to find a way to include this community, even if it means doing something differently. And I believe that we once again are missing the boat here, even on this candidate. This community deserves more. And I just thought it would have been a wonderful opportunity to engage that community, knowing that we've made some major mistakes over the past, but to engage the community in a decision-making process so this way they can feel they have their hands on it. So there's a reason for making them succeed, and it concerns me because it gives me the impression that we are almost going back to where we were again. Let's put this in and see if this will work. And it disturbs me, so I don't support it. I cannot support this. I have said it many times, I don't know what the situation is, but bring them in, set them down, have that alumni association, who has been probably the most vocal agency or organization out there about the future of Westinghouse. And over the past, Mark Roosevelt refused to meet with them. With your administration, we haven't totally engaged them. And I'm at a point I'm throwing my hands up. But it baffles me why we do not really engage everyone. The meeting was great, I was there. It was venting, everybody vented. But allowing folks who are passionate about turning that community around, and we missed the boat again. So I'm only asking or saying that for you, that it would have been helpful to have a conversation with you while this decision was being made. I am a board member. I'm concerned. I've been advocating or including some of us, expanding the circle, and it would have been helpful, and I could have shared these comments prior to this point. I received this, as you know, today of this young man. So a brand new guy, we got to allow him time to learn the city, and he's could be a wonderful and a great guy, but to not be able to put anything in place here locally and to develop it, I think we're missing the mark. So once again, I will not support this, and I'm going to continue to ask that we openly and freely allow the community, allow them their hands on this process. I mean, the entire East End, because what happens at Westinghouse just ripples down to the other schools, and it's unfortunate what we did not do right that now has put this community in a terrible, terrible situation in terms of possibilities of turning their schools around. So disappointed, I cannot support it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Brentley. Mrs. Khaleesi?
Thank you, Mr. Sumter. I just wanted to bring to the board's attention that we have quite a few retirees in our book this evening. One that has jumped, well, I don't want to say one specifically, all of them, of course, we will miss dearly, and I'm happy for them because going into retirement, as some of you know, is a great and wonderful thing, and you get to really enjoy life. And then I would like to think that all of these individuals will truly enjoy life. I do want to bring one specific person to our attention, and that would be Nancy Codman. Nancy has done a lot of work for this district, and she's been, I've worked very well with her. I live very close to her as well, and Nancy is a very hard-working person that when we did our, when we closed the 22 schools, Nancy was the one who put that all together, and I don't even know how she did it. I mean, she just had her checklist and just check, 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 and she was just phenomenal. And I know that she'll be greatly missed. And she never even showed a sign of stress throughout all that. I don't know how she did that, but I mean, she really deserves to get some credit. So I wish her a lot of luck, and I hope that my colleagues join me in wishing Nancy and the rest of the people that are retiring a wonderful, wonderful rest of their lives. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Khaleesi. Mrs. Fink? Mrs. Hazuda?
Two follow-ups, and then I have a question. As far as Mr. Brentley goes, I have several schools in my district that are going to have new principals this year, none of which the community was consulted. My concern would be if we consulted the community every time we appointed a principal, the principals would be looking at appeasing community and parents instead of educating the children. So that's my say on that. As far as Mrs. Nancy Codman, she was a teacher at Beechwood when she was young, and all the boy students were just absolutely in love with her. My question is on a retirement, and I don't know if it goes to Mrs. Kramer or Mr. Carter or Mr. Joseph, but Ronald Schmeiser, his retirement, what is the process for filling that position? Does it come under us at all, or do we just get the person that's hired by Michael Lamb? And we get the person, and we then vote to approve it, or like, what's the process?
Michael Lamb does it.
I'll defer to the solicitor.
It's my understanding that Michael Lamb does the appointing and we get them. There's a set amount that comes out of the budget that goes to fund that position, but it's the school code designates that the person appointed by the city controller in a school district of the first class becomes our school controller. So that's just the process.
So do you know, have we had any communication for his time schedule to do this?
I was not involved, but I can find out for you.
Do you have any concerns about this position being open for an undesignated time period?
We expect that Mr. Lamb will make a timely appointment.
I guess this is back to you. How does his pay get split? Like, how much does the city, Michael?
Mr. Schmeiser is a deputy school controller. By school code, the elected city controller is a school controller, and the deputy school controller, Mr. Schmeiser, is 100% paid by the school district. He's a school district of Pittsburgh employee recommended by the school controller to serve as the deputy controller.
So he's a school board employee that we are not part of the process for hiring until it comes to the vote when it comes before us.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Shealy.
Can we go around first? Oh, you're, yeah, can we go around first? Okay. Dr. Hawley?
Yes. In terms of having every principal being brought before the community, I agree that that may or may not be necessary. And some communities didn't have a chance to voice their concern. But let me echo Mr. Brentley's concerns. When we are talking about Westinghouse, we have absolutely changed that school's population. It used to be a high school. We went back and changed it to 6 to 12, all in one building, having very little room to separate the middle school students from the high school students, and having numerous principals come in and out of that building, plus the fact that it was hard to staff from the beginning and it's hard to staff now. So this community, this school actually has to take, is the default school for every child that lives on the other side of Penn Avenue, all the way through almost to Garfield. So yes, it is very important that the community have some involvement in the selection of that administrator, or at least be introduced to the idea of the person who is coming and what that person will be actually doing. We had a numerous amount of people to come in over the year to talk about the help that needs to be done at Westinghouse. So I'm a bit disappointed that, you can make statements that you want to make, but yes, the community there needs to be healed. And they need to be a part of that school if that school is ever going to be successful. One of the speakers yesterday from the community came in and asked for a national search for that school. Many people have also asked for a national search for that school. It is one of our lowest achieving schools, one of our schools that needs lots and lots of support. I don't know of any other high school in the district, oh well, let me take that back, there might be one or there might be another one, that we inflicted this 6 to 12 on. And we are the people, and I include myself even though I didn't vote on it, but I sit on this board. And I take this responsibility very seriously in putting all of these students together like this. They need all of the support they can get, plus they need the community's support. And I will be agreeing with Mr. Brentley on this issue. Not that I'm not in agreement to the person that was actually selected by the superintendent. After reading his resume, I think he's workable. But the fact remains that the community knows nothing about this applicant, and the community was not involved in the selection. We had a very good meeting last month around that school, where we included parents, community partners, teachers, the PFT, central office, board members were there. The consultant that we paid lots of money to headed the group to try and bring us all together. So people are willing to work on this, but I think that the extension to the community is necessary. And if we're not going to do that, we're going to be starting this particular applicant from square one, and he's going to have to now work his way through the community. Whereas it could have been a lot different if we had brought him forward, took him to the community, let him meet the people there, had some conversations with the community about their concerns. We're really putting him at a disadvantage by not having that done. But please, let me be very clear. The school has many, many concerns that need to be addressed. And the only people that can actually do that is this district and the community. And so I have to agree with the fact that we needed to have a community involved in this. Thank you.
Mr. McCray.
Thank you. I agree. There's a lot of people retiring here. We're going to miss greatly, but you know what? Retirement's great. I can say that from experience. But I also want to recognize and thank our employees that are in the service for the country. Thank you.
Welcome. Mr. Sumter.
No comment, thank you.
I'm sorry, I stepped out. Did anyone say what, I lost his name, your new assistant, your proposed new assistant's credentials are?
No, we did not discuss that.
Could you please?
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Shealy. The individual that we are recommending the board consider for this position is currently the Student Discipline Officer, Interim Director of School and Community Relations in Hillsborough, North Carolina, Orange County School District. He's a previous principal in Erie School District, Erie, Pennsylvania, at Benson High School. This individual is working on a superintendent's letter of eligibility, which he expects to earn in the fall, in 2014, I'm sorry, and is also a former, has military background as well, as part of the 18th Airborne Corps. I had opportunity to speak with him last week. He was passionate about the needs of kids in schools like Westinghouse. He has experience working in difficult high school and was able to see some progress during the time of his tenure. We believe that his interest, his passion about the work, because I asked him, he's currently a central office administrator, why would you want to become a principal? And he said he misses it. He said working with kids every day was what really gave him a great deal of satisfaction and pleasure. So we believe we found a very strong candidate for Westinghouse. And I know that I hear the importance of the community being engaged and involved in the support of Westinghouse High School, and I absolutely agree that that is totally true. However, I also would advise the board that there are not a lot of strong high school principals out there, period. And we're blessed in Pittsburgh to have the ones we have. But it's not like this is a job that there are people lined up for around the educational community. It's simply not so. And furthermore, we felt it was important, if we possibly could, to get an individual that had already been in a high school rather than someone who was starting this as their first principalship, which frankly would be pretty tough as a first-year principal. So to be able to get an individual that had a high school background and certainly has a passion and interest about it, I described the community to him and the fact that we have a highly engaged community, all of whom are seeking to have a successful high school at Westinghouse, and how important it was going to be to meet with, talk with, get to know, build relationships with the community. I described to him the partnerships that are in place at Westinghouse and the support that is there. And the work that has been done by Dr. Crenshaw over the last year and a half that's available to build on. So we have an opportunity, I believe, to get a strong candidate. He's an African-American male. He's an experienced principal. He has a strong resume and he has a strong record. He had stellar recommendations from his previous employer and his current employer. Now, of course, it is clearly this board's decision, but I will say that I think it would be an absolute shame if we would send the message that somehow we're asking you to go in and take on one of the toughest assignments we have, but we're not sure we want you or not.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Mr. Brentley.
Yes, Doctor, I would just want to say, and I want to say this respectfully, I believe that for what we had in front of us to deal with Westinghouse, it is a shame that your administration did not reach out to some of us on the board here to at least give you the history, the whole history. To, if you're not going to reach out to certain people, I'll do it. I've said it many times. For whatever reason, if they don't like the Westinghouse alumni, I'll reach out to them. Everybody has something to offer. And before we just jump out and put someone there, I mean, I don't know if my colleague, Dr. Holly, was involved in this decision at all. You know, okay, Dan Mark is a 30-year educator from that same area that's in question, and to not have anybody from the administration to pick up a phone and say, will you work with us through the selection process? Something's wrong, doctor. Something is wrong. And this community deserves better than that. And so now when he hits the ground running, and if folks don't line up and fall in line with him, then they'll point at the community, you're not this, you're not engaging, and that's so unfair to do. We had a wonderful opportunity from the meeting that we had there. Let's bring in, I said, dude, something different. Talk to, you know, why not have the 3 final candidates if you got to look outside? I believe it's right here what we could have easily filled there. But if you got to look outside for the 3 finalists, you know, you put a community panel together and just say, here are the folks that we're considering. What are your opinions? And why should we do it for them? Because we owe that community so much. They're not responsible. We're responsible for all of the failures that have happened. And to my colleague, Mrs. Zuda, you know, about the community's not involved. Well, remember, you do not have or any schools that have went through what Westinghouse has been through. I have to remind you that there are communities involved in selection process. There are board members involved. And I would hope that before my colleague, Ms. Fink, leaves this board, that she will honestly tell you, and listen, I ain't angry about you. I ain't angry about this. But she was so involved with her community, I'm going to guess that the majority of the time that someone wanted to be placed there as a principal, that Jean either knew of it or had some kind of involvement with it or clearly showed her support or not support for it. There's nothing wrong with that.
Not for the last 30 years, Mark.
Okay. Well, then we're all a little disappointed then, Jean. But we can, and guess what? We have 6 months before you leave. So maybe you'll be honest and share. Yes, I'm hoping. That's true. But listen, as I said, I'm not upset about that because that's how you have the community involvement, maybe a little bit too much on that side. But the point is that that school needed something different because of what has happened over the past. And because we have a wonderful resume, God bless them. This is much more than, do you think you can be a principal? And I miss it. And so, Doctor, I really would just like that. Do you see a role for me on this board as an African American who has been in this district all my life, who has something to share? Is there an opportunity to share some things with you and your administration when we're making these tight decisions, or that you don't, your administration just knows it all? And I don't want to be respectful, but I've shared that many times. I said, why don't we talk to us?
Mr. Brentley, I learn every day. I do not ever and never have pretended to, quote, know it all, unquote. But I will say this. I think that it has been incumbent upon, we felt, our job to look for a leader for Westinghouse. And we've been doing the very best we can, full-out effort in that regard. I think it was clear to everyone that we needed a leader for Westinghouse. School is going to be starting in all too soon for us. We knew that whoever went there, whether they were from inside or outside the school district, needed as much time as possible in order to be able to get things in place to have a smooth start to school, which I know we all want. At least I think we all want that. And so to get an individual in that did two things. One, had enough time to have the ability to get off on the right foot. And secondly, we have an issue around holding effective teachers at Westinghouse. Dr. Hawley describes it as hard to staff. She's right. It's totally hard to staff, and teachers are not going to stay in a school when they don't know who the leader is. So they're kind of in limbo about what's going to happen, and we heard some of that when we met with them about a month or so ago. Now, you said to have a panel and have a panel interview, and sure, I've seen processes like that for superintendent's jobs, but I'm not seeing it for principal. And I think that one of the things we have to remember is that when we're interviewing people, partly we're selecting them, but the other part is they're also selecting us. And they have a choice as well. And so we have to keep that in mind too. And the kind of candidates we're looking for do have choices. These are not people that are desperately seeking a job. The kind of candidate we want is somebody that has other options and chooses this because this is what they want to do. And so we have to think of our process going both ways, not just one way. I do believe it is totally possible to engage the community at Westinghouse, including the Westinghouse Alumni Association. In fact, I had a conversation with this candidate about the fact that he would need to reach out. He is interested and willing to do that. But ultimately, we have to get a leader in place so that we can get teachers kind of settled in and in place and potentially even attract some teachers back to the school that may have left before or whatever. So we're going to try to get a strong teaching staff in place. And furthermore, this individual needs time to build relationships with them because ultimately it's going to depend a lot on their ability to gel as a team before school starts in order to have a strong start to school. So all I'm saying is we've not had a process such as you described before for a principal's position. If it was the intention that we were going to have such a process, I wish somebody had said that to me before tonight, because you knew we were looking for a principal. And in fact, I did talk to Dr. Hawley, I think a week or so ago, to let you know we thought we were getting close. We thought we were getting close. So the fact of the matter is, that's where we are. We have a candidate. We believe he's a strong one. I can't go backwards now and, just do a process over again or do it the way you described. You feel it should have been done. So we're here tonight. It's up, the board's choice as to whether we want to proceed. And as I said, I'll do everything possible to have this gentleman be able to reach out to this community and including all its constituents and begin to build relationships with them. I think he's perfectly capable of doing that, and he certainly is desirous of doing it.
I am, the question that I asked, Doctor, and listen, there's no disagreement with me on the importance of having someone here early so that he or she can prepare to get ready. That's obvious. I've been here for 14 years. I understand that value. But I have raised concerns about the entire process. This community deserves more. And I am just once again raising the question, do you have or see value in those of us who can possibly give you inside additional information in doing these challenging things? And, we'll just leave it there. It's just fascinating to do the third year in a row to this community. And no one at this point has stopped to say, you know what, this is the same of what we've been giving them. And, it's supposed to be a magic miracle man who's going to jump down and come in here and take a speed course on knowing everybody, knowing the community, knowing that this, and then jump and be a great educator. What? you know, you had folks, we didn't groom folks, we didn't search locally. So we'll leave it at that. Disappointed in the process, but I will say again that we can offer some things, Doctor. We are. And yes, you have a variety of board members here, but on rare occasions, when you're dealing with a specific area, I have been an advocate for this area for the last 5 or 6 years. Dr. Holly has taught in that area, knows the community, knows the people, and to not engage us, you know, it's like there's no need for us. What's our role here? You know, when will we be included or be considered on things? And when you make the decision, but we're going to ask to go back and either to clean it up or go back and to stand and to tweak it and try to make it work. Had we been involved in the beginning, possibly it could have been a better outcome. So I'm disappointed, so we'll leave it at that.
With all due respect, Mr. Bruntley, I take offense to your comments about doing this to this community for the past 3 years. As you know, I live in 15208. Been there for years. Got a house there. I'm there. I see it. It's obscene to me the way we are trying to welcome this man into our community. And it's obscene to me that Dr. Crenshaw is sitting behind you, who's put her blood, sweat, and tears in the Westinghouse for the past 2 or 3 years, and this is the treatment that this board gives her. This is a woman who has worked her tail off to do everything within her ability to move the students of that building forward. There are a lot of barriers to education in Westinghouse. But it does not, the lack of high achievement does not reflect the amount of work and dedication and care that Dr. Crenshaw put into that building. So I can't apologize for what you say, but what I can say is, Dr. Crenshaw, I appreciate you, and I appreciate what you've done, and I'm sorry that you're leaving Westinghouse, and I wish you the best going forward, and I know that you have left us better than when you came. Mrs. Khaleesi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's a couple of issues, but I'd like to stay on this topic for a second because as the 12 years that I've been sitting on this board and many of those years sitting next to you, Mr. Bruntley, I have found myself in many times biting my tongue because at one time you'll say that you want a national search, and then when the national search is done, you want it done differently. It is not this board's job to interfere in the hiring of principals. And quite honestly, I'm even more offended at the fact that you have treated Dr. Lane, especially this evening, with as though she does not have the experience to do exactly what we have hired her to do. She has 42 years of educational experience. 42. From teacher on through all systems all the way to here. She has even been offered the positions of working in the departments of education. I think she is more than qualified to choose the person, and then she will be held accountable for the person she chooses. You cannot ask a community to pick a principal. They would not have the experience to do it. But I would like to think that they would at least open their arms and allow the person to do their job. And is it truly the community, or is it people outside of the community that want to be part of something that they really should let the people that are educated to do this job? I mean, if I was this man, I wouldn't come here. I wouldn't. And I truly hope that's not the case. But I mean, this is just getting ridiculous. 1 minute it's national search, the next minute let's not. I mean, enough is enough. Let her do her job, let her do the best she can, and then we will hold her accountable for it. And Dr. Crenshaw, I too would like to give you a thank you for the ability and the work that you have done, because I know the job was not easy by any means. I would like to also go to the subject of Mr. Schmeiser, if I may, because I think that this is something that the public should permitted to continue, or is that not permitted? On the subject of Mr. Schmeiser, for the record, and for the sake of the public, because I think that this is extremely important, the city controller, which would be Mr. Lamb, who has been elected by the people of this city, chooses the individual that then becomes our controller in this building, but the dollars to pay him come out of the school district's budget. So if, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I want to make sure that the public understands this. So he gives us the name of whomever he chooses to do this job. We must vote on that person and then pay for that person's salary, any raises, benefits, and all. Am I correct?
Correct.
And we have no say-so whatsoever on who is chosen.
If the city controller did not recommend somebody, then this board could appoint someone of their own choosing to be the deputy school controller. But by code, it's 24 PS 21-2121. It requires the board to vote to appoint a deputy school controller selected by the city controller. And only in the absence of a recommendation from the city controller would you be at the liberty to decide on somebody yourself.
Okay. And I understand, and I thank you, Ms. Kramer, for that information, and as well, Mr. Camarda. I just wanted to make clear for the public on what that process is and how that works. And I also want to make clear for the public that if Mr. Lamb chooses to give this individual a raise, it comes out of our budget, not the city's budget. It comes out of ours. So he chooses who to hire. He chooses does he also choose the salary?
The position of deputy school controller, the board has actually built that as one of the positions, and it's on a salary schedule within the district's salary schedules. So he makes a recommendation, and the board had set the salary for that position.
So Mr. Lamb makes the recommendation of what the salary should be.
He makes a recommendation for the individual. The board had set that job title within a certain salary structure already.
So since that position is open at this point in time, can we lower that salary before that person that position is filled?
I would suspect you would to do that, you would want to have discussions with Mr. Lamb.
Okay, well, I'm a little confused then. If and I don't mean to put you on the spot, Mr. Camarda, that's not my intention here. I want it clear for the public. What I want to understand is if he is the person that recommends someone and we set the salary schedule, why is there a need to be a discussion on what the salary schedule is that this board sets?
I would suspect that the board would want to do that because Mr. Lamb is probably looking at the salary schedule already with whoever he's intending, or, I'm not sure where he's at within his process with the replacement, but he knows what the level and the steps are already related to the position. So I would just think that's a courtesy conversation.
Okay, courtesy, I understand, and Dr. Lane, I know you want to speak. Just give me one more second here, okay? I understand that that's the way it always was, but we're in a different day today. We're in a different financial situation, and if we have an opportunity to reorganize something, I think we should take that opportunity. So I just think that if we have that opportunity, we should take it. We should seriously take it, because that person right now makes a great deal of money, and I think that we should find a way to take the opportunity to evaluate that. Dr. Lane, I'm sorry. I'm giving her the floor for the moment.
Dr. Lane, I'm sorry.
Yes, the one thing that I think I can certainly talk to Mr. Lamb about, when we did central office reduction, we did approach the controller's office about making a reduction, and he declined at that time, but did say he was willing to look as positions opened. And to my knowledge, this is the first one that's opened since that conversation took place. So I think that's where we start. Question on the table is, does it have to be filled?
And Dr. Lane, I believe there's now 2 positions that'll be empty soon. I believe there are 2 individuals in that office that are retiring. Mr. Schmeiser and I want to say Mr. Brown. I'm not sure if that's his name. But in any case, I know there's 2. So that department should be looked at, and I assume the conversation should happen between you and Mr. Lamb. But I mean, we're in a position that if we've cut our own staff, which is our responsibility to educate these children, then I think that we can ask Mr. Lamb to reconsider and look at that department. I just find it rather interesting that we're forced to take someone at whatever salary that they choose, and it comes out of the educational funds of our children. It disturbs me quite a bit. And I think that the public should know this. I think the public should be very well aware of it, and this way they can voice their opinion as well. So I'm done.
Mrs. Fink, can we go around, please? Someone over there had a comment. Mrs. Fink or Mrs. Azuda? Mrs. Azuda.
I just wanted to say 3 or 4 years ago, Brashear High School was totally, the staff was let go and had to apply for their positions. After they were restaffed because of furloughs, several of the selected teachers were not hired. We changed the whole thing of what we were going to do at Brashear. So trust me, my phone did ring off the hook at that time. I couldn't walk into anywhere in the community without getting blasted. The teachers used the students because, and spread horrible rumors because they were going to be placed out of Brashear. And it was bad, so I do sympathize with what has transpired at Westinghouse. We have had some administration turnover, not certainly to the degree that Westinghouse has, but I understand what it does to go out into the community when you're going through turmoil like that. And the best you can do is hope everybody can pull behind the new leader and move the kids, for the sake of the kids, that all the adults can pull together so that the students can be successful. And that would be my hope.
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. Dr. Hawley?
Thank you for that clarification, Mrs. Azuda. I want to be clear that anybody that walks into a school such as Westinghouse will have my full support in terms of helping them to get that job done. And I think that I have been able to do that with whomever was in those positions, even when I didn't agree with the composition of why you were 3 principals and then, gender-specific school. We tried to make everything work, but things just didn't work out. If this gentleman is willing to come here and work in this school, I am more than willing to work with him and help him as much as possible. However, I'm still going to say that the community still should have been notified as to, this is the person that I'm going to have, we're recommending him. These are his credentials, just like we went over it today, for the public to know that he is a well-qualified candidate. I just think that there is sometimes when you have to pull out an olive branch to people that have been really, they don't feel as though they've been treated fairly by this district or by the people who, or by some of their board members. And I include myself in some of this as well. So it's not that I'm not going to support this candidate. I certainly am going to support him. I want him to come. I want to see the work get done, because we do have our backs up against the wall at this particular time. We're now going into June. Dr. Crenshaw will be moving on to her new position. Teachers are waiting to see if they want to stay or if they want to come. We really need to have this building staffed by July 1st. And I'm going to be asking this question again come June at the next legislative meeting. Do you have everybody in place for that school? We need to have time to bring the community in, to work with this particular individual, to have some direction as to where the school will be going. Will we be having new programs? Will we have enough funds to do what we need to have done for the children in that school? I'm willing to get in and do that work and help as a board member to support that school, not just for the adults, but for the many children that are coming into that building. I never agreed with bringing those middle school students into that facility. However, they're there. We're willing to do the work, but when somebody tells me that, you know, that's not something that's given to all the schools, then I have to take offense to that. And I really got a little bit upset over that statement. It's not because I'm not going to support this candidate. It's just that this school has been just turned around so much, and so much inconsistencies going on there, that it would be hard for any child to come there and learn. So I'm hoping that we can move forward and get this work done so that we can get these children in the building and working as quickly as possible.
Mr. Sumter?
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. Time on task, focus on the children. We can't affect the past, but we can affect the future. I am in no ways in favor of abdicating any responsibility of the board or this district. However, we have to be forward-thinking in what is going to happen from this point forward. And some of the comments have been alluded to in terms of how the community can be engaged with this individual, because that's a part of the mantra of educating children in the district. If at some time we can have a conversation about ways to involve the community if needed in any particular situation, that's a conversation that can be held with this board if necessary. However, the comments that have been made regarding what is this individual going to do, what do they have planned, getting them engaged with the community, getting the community engaged with them from this point forward, what's the best plan for the students, that's the conversation. Moving forward, again, we can't change the past. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brentley?
Yes, I just wanted to clarify something, and I am so used to it here, and that is for the folks in the viewing audience, you often notice that the attempt to always create or to try to make someone appear as the bad guy, and we just witnessed it here. My concern was with this process, and I think that I've said it twice, my concern was the process. Unfortunately, two of my colleagues here tried to flip the script and to attempt to make me the bad guy by simply talking about Dr. Lane's credentials and her experience and her education. That's a cop-out. We're talking about the issue that's before us. And then, unfortunately, my other colleague here made the comments about Dr. Crenshaw. I never mentioned Dr. Crenshaw, not once. I've been laser beam focused on the process of what's before us. And yes, it's an interesting thing to try to point folks in another direction and say he didn't do this and he didn't do that, or we didn't give them credit. The issue is still here before us. So I just want to point that out totally disappointed. It does not change anything, I am a board member. And my job is to set policies, evaluate policies, create policies. We hire, fire, promote, and demote. I am asking questions, which is what we are supposed to do. I am making sure that all students, it's not my district, but I've been advocating for this area for a very long time because of what this board has done to that particular community. And so I am asking the kinds of questions that need to be asked. And we'll hear about more of those questions, I'm certain, from the community. But we cannot allow anyone to try to divert the real issues by simply bringing others into this thing. I have no problem. And I have never, to date, said anything about Dr. Lane's experience. What a cheap shot. She is a professional. She responds to questions when asked. I have never, ever raised questions about what Dr. Crenshaw did or didn't do. What a cheap shot. That is not the issue here. The issue is what we're talking about, which is the hiring of this young man. I did not put this man's resume on blast before we even voted on it. I didn't do that. I'm raising questions and have raised questions about the process. So I would respectfully say to my colleagues that it's helpful that if we can stay focused. I think it's great for TV when you can turn around and make it look like somebody's always the bad guy, but it's not helpful for the children. I have no problems, never had any problems with talking to folks privately if need be, but definitely, and I'm very careful here about staying focused, and it's unfortunate what happened over the last 20 minutes or so. And I'm so sorry, my colleague, of course, had to get up and leave. It's not helpful for this community, and it's not helpful to the district. Thank you.
Ms. Kramer, may we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Brentley?
I'll be voting yes on the report. I will be abstaining from the new appointments on the addendum E, section A of the new appointments. Addendum B. There's no page, that's right, correct. Thank you.
Is that an abstention?
Yes.
Mrs. Clazy?
Yes, on the report as a whole, on page 7 of Addendum F, I will be abstaining on number 22.
Mrs. Fink?
Yes.
Mrs. Hazuda?
Yes.
Dr. Holly?
Yes, on the report as a whole, I'll be abstaining on number 2 and number 3 in section B.
Excuse me, Dr. Holly, it's addendum B?
Yes, didn't I say addendum?
You said section B.
Oh, I'm
There's
sorry,
lots of section
addendum B.
Bs.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll be abstaining on number 2 and number 3.
Okay, Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Sumter?
Yes.
Mrs. Shealy?
I need to abstain on addendum F. I lost it. Can I just abstain on the whole addendum? Because there's one specific person I need to abstain for.
Sure.
I'll abstain for the whole addendum F, and yes on everything else.
The report as a whole passes.
I'm sorry, Ms. Kramer, I was really trying to find the one item. So can I change that? Because I did find the
Sure.
one item. Item number 8,
To clarify your abstention?
yes. Item number 8 of addendum F,
Number 8.
yes on the rest of the addendum.
The report as a whole passes.
Thank you. We will now move on to the special education budget. Are there any questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, Ms. Weiss, may we have a roll call? I mean, I made it through almost the entire night. Ms. Kramer.
You almost did it last time, but, you know, at least I could be a daughter or something. Mr. Brentley,
Yes.
Mrs. Clazy,
Yes.
Mrs. Fink,
Yes.
Mrs. Hazuda,
Yes.
Dr. Holly,
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Terrific job on the budget, yes.
Mr. Sumter,
Yes.
and Ms. Shealy.
Yes.
The report passes, sorry.
Thank you, Ms.
Threw me off.
Kramer. I'd like to call the board's attention to the financial statement and report of the controller, both dated April 30th, 2013. Are there any questions or comments? Mr. McCray.
Just want to ask Mr. Joseph, how are our revenues coming in as expected?
Actually, we've managed to gain some ground in our real estate collection, so whereas last month we were roughly 20% behind, we've closed that gap to being 4% behind on the 12-month roll forward, so our revenues are coming in better.
Excellent. And our expenditures are on track?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Seeing no more, there are no new business items before us this evening. Are there any items that need to be brought before the board at this time that require a board vote for approval? Seeing none, are there any announcements to be brought before the board that do not require a legislative vote? Go around. Mr. Brentley? Mr. Brentley, please. Can we just go around?
I wanted to we'll give a complete report for our 15th annual Take a Father to School Day. We are still waiting. Our numbers are still coming in, and we will be able to give that information out, hopefully a nice report next month. One thing we were able to do, and I hope to get a picture to show that they made us called the Fans of the Game, which allows a father and son to go on the field and you change, I don't know, I don't follow baseball, but you're allowed to come down on the field and change the bases. And so I had an opportunity to go down with my son, and we were able to change the bases on the third and the sixth inning. Third inning, we forgot the sixth inning. And so we'll be able to show that we had a wonderful time. We had a wonderful turnout. We had our towels, and we'll be able to share our final numbers next month. But while we were on the field, those of you who've ever been to the games, you know they have these guys that are roaming camera guys that will put your picture up on the Jumbotron and so on. While we were there waiting to be introduced, there's a guy, all I remember, he has a pirate shirt on and has a big zero on it, but he has all this bushy hair coming out of the back of his hat. And we were just standing there talking, and he said, yeah, I've been here for, I want to say 18 or 20 years. And he said, I've covered this. He said, the Pirates are the great guys. He said, by the way, I'm a Peabody High School graduate, 1979. And so we both gave each other the fist pound. And so I say that to say that we never know where our students will come up and how well they're doing. He gave me a card and said that he is available to volunteer in this district. He's always made himself available to talk about the industry. And so if you're ever at the Pirate game, he's number 0. He has a camera crew, and he's in and out all throughout the system. Also, I wanted to mention that last month we had a pretty healthy discussion about the Take a Father to School Day. And I mentioned, or it was mentioned, that at one point someone had mentioned, well, you know, we've never been involved with doing anything for mothers. I've been able to find, with the help of some very good folks, the actual resolution, and that was back on May 9th, 2011, where I introduced, it's called the Board of Education Take a Mother to School Day, and the purpose was to acknowledge all of the wonderful women and mothers that we have in the district. I gave the rationale for it, and it had some concerns, I believe at that point, by the administration. But it was mentioned last week by my colleague, Ms. Khaleesi, that we do not do anything for women or mothers. And I just want to remind folks that I did it, and I put it on the floor, but the vote was seconded by Dr. Daria Ware Allen, and the final vote went down. There was one yes vote, and that was me. The following all voted no. And that's Daria Allen, Teresa Calese, Gene Fink, Bill Eisler, Floyd McRae, Shireen Shealy, Tom Sumter, and Sherry Hazuda. My point is that when we make accusations about folks not being active and doing things for others, it's important that we operate from a factual base. I have and always wanted to acknowledge all of the wonderful things that our mothers and women are doing in this district. This item went down, and there were 4 women there that voted no. And so I still believe, and at that time, I think there was there was a notice about March was the Women Month, and so I thought it was very powerful. We had a lot of women on the board. We had a powerful administration and women that played a major part, and I thought it would be so timely to have that day. But obviously, some did not agree. And so I still believe they should be acknowledged. I still believe we should have that day, formal day on the calendar. I'm encouraged by that, by the president of Allegheny PTO, who told me a week ago that they had an event there where they invited the mothers. And she said that they had a line of mothers there. I believe they served them lunch. She said they had a line of mothers who responded and came out. And so I will be introducing it again. I will wait until maybe the new board comes on and see if they will agree. But I'm hoping when it comes forward, if those that are here, that they would support this wonderful, wonderful day and to acknowledge all of the contributions that women are making in this district, and not just say it, but put it on the calendar where we are recognizing them each and every day. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Mr. Bruntley. Mrs. Calese? Mrs. Fink? Mrs. Azuda?
2 comments. One, you never know where you're going to see somebody. Speaking of the Pittsburgh Pirates, one of our teachers used to be the backup pirate parrot. And full-time, one of those ones that shoot at the T-shirts and walk on stilts and all that stuff. That's one of our teachers. The other thing I would like to, again, bring up, I would like to see the Take Somebody to School Day move to the fall so that we could have residual benefits. I don't think we reached the maximum benefits we could by having it at the end of the school year. The communication and the interaction with the teacher, and most likely that student will not have that teacher the following year. So if it would be held in the fall, you could have the residual benefits. Secondly, in consideration of the students who don't have a male role model, perhaps it could be inclusive and be take a loved one to school day. And so whether it's male or female, each child could have an adult with them. Because it's my understanding from talking to some people involved in our schools that we do have children who stay home that day. We do have children who spend a lot of the day in tears because they don't have someone show up with them. So maybe if we would do take a loved one to school day in the fall, it would accomplish what the original intent was, which was to open the communication with the teacher and get an adult in the school for that child. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mrs. Azuda. Dr. Holly? Mr. McCray?
Thank you. Yesterday and this morning, I had the pleasure of going to Carmelt Science and Technology Academy and doing their portfolio reviews. Those kids are phenomenal. Their writing is tremendous. I don't know what it is. It's the magic of Dr. Oak, I guess, because she knows every kid in the school. She checks every paper in the school, and they're really well-behaved children. It was great. It was great for me because I learned a lot from them, but they also learned how to interview, which is a very critical thing going forward for the promise and for their futures. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. McCray. Mr. Sumter?
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. Very quickly, I want to recognize the winners of Gene Kelly Awards, of which Pittsburgh Public Schools won 9 awards. Best Scenic Design, Budget Category 1, Pittsburgh Kappa in the Heights. Best Lighting Design, Pittsburgh Barack Obama International Studies Academy, Once on This Island. Best All-Student Orchestra, Pittsburgh Kappa in the Heights. Best Ensemble, Pittsburgh Kappa in the Heights. Best Direction, Pittsburgh Kappa in the Heights. Best Actor, Angelo, and I don't want to mess his name up, but Raggiani, accept my apologies, Pittsburgh Kappa. He was Best Actor in the Heights. Best Musical Budget Category 1, Pittsburgh Kappa in the Heights. Best Supporting Actress, Michelle Williams, Pittsburgh Kappa, and Pittsburgh Science and Technology Academy were the winners of the Charles Gray Award for Special Achievement in Arts Education. Hopefully, everybody gets the message out there that, hey, good things are happening in the Pittsburgh Public Schools. Come to Kappa, come to our schools. We're performing just as well or better than the surrounding districts. So again, congratulations to all the winners of the Gene Kelly Awards. And having seen some of these plays performed by other schools and been involved when my daughters were going to Shenley High School in terms of what they were doing there. So you got some experience of seeing what they go through, the practice, the performance, and we were able to see a part of, or a couple scenes from In the Heights from Pittsburgh Kappa when the Pittsburgh Promise had a meeting downtown to talk about the state of the promise, and they performed at Kappa, and it was very, very good. So again, congratulations to the winners of the Gene Kelly Awards. And as always, invest in the future, give to the Pittsburgh Promise, give to need. Thank you. And the Homewood Children's Village. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Sumter. I just wanted to add about the Gene Kelly Awards. I was honored along to stand next to Dr. Lane and present the Best Ensemble Award to Pittsburgh Kappa. And along with the ones you mentioned, Pittsburgh Obama was nominated for several awards, Pittsburgh Brashear was nominated, and Pittsburgh Perry was nominated. And Pittsburgh SciTech Award came with $3,000 to promote arts education at SciTech. May I have a motion?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned. You good? You ready? I'd like to call the May 29, 2013 meeting of the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit to order. Ms. Kramer, may we have a roll call?
Mr. Brentley.
Here.
Mrs. Khaleesi. We'll come back to her. Mrs. Fink.
Here.
Mrs. Hazuda.
Here.
Dr. Holly.
Here.
Mr. Eisler. Mr. McCray.
Here.
Mr. Sumter.
Present.
And Ms. Shealy.
Here.
Thank you.
Please turn to the minutes from last month's meetings. Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, same sign. The minutes stand approved. Please turn to the Committee on Education. Are there any questions or comments at this time? And please just signify. Seeing none. Ms. Kramer, may we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Brentley.
Yes.
Mrs. Fink.
Yes.
Mrs. Hazuda. Dr. Holly.
Yes.
Mr. McCray.
Yes.
Mr. Sumter.
Yes.
Ms. Shealy.
Yes.
The report passes.
Thank you, Ms. Kramer. Please move to the committee report on business that is before us. Are there any questions or comments that were not addressed at agenda review? Seeing none, Ms. Kramer, may we have a roll call?
Mr. Brentley.
Yes.
Mrs. Fink.
Yes.
Mrs. Hazuda.
Yes.
Dr. Holly.
Yes.
Mr. McCray.
I just want to note that this also includes a special ed budget. Yes.
Mr. Sumter.
Yes.
And Ms. Shealy.
Yes.
The report passes.
We will now move on to the personnel report. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, Ms. Kramer, may we have a roll call?
Mr. Brentley.
Yes.
Mrs. Fink.
Yes.
Mrs. Hazuda. Dr. Holly.
Yes.
Mr. McCray.
Yes.
Mr. Sumter.
Yes.
Ms. Shealy.
Yes.
The report passes.
I would like to call your attention to the financial statements and travel report that are before you. And with that, may we have a motion to adjourn? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned.